What are some complaints the US and China have about each other's role in the world?
From the US perspective, certainly at this moment in time, China's support for Russia. If there were anything that the US government, if they could wave a magic wand and say, or flip the switch, the first thing they would do would be to flip the switch on China's support for Russia. I think that's the number one complaint. I think Chinese influence operations, have gotten a lot of attention. I think that's something else because those influence operations and the espionage elements of what China has done have really changed, I think, the tenor of the relationship in a very negative way. It's cast suspicion on sort of the bad behavior of the Chinese government and a few Chinese individuals has cast suspicion on like all Chinese scientists and scholars who are working in sensitive technical or technological areas. I think it's been so detrimental to the relationship and to Chinese and Chinese Americans in the United States. So I think that would be another thing that if you could say, take that back, that would probably be a pretty big one. And then I would say China's military assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific is another really significant problem that the United States must confront. I mean, there are a whole array, but if I had to say, I think anything that increases the risk of kinetic conflict has to be sort of in the top three of, what the United States would want to see changed. I think from China's perspective, for sure, top billing at the moment would probably be all of the US's recent efforts to ensure that what the United States sells to China, the types of investments that the United States makes in China, the type of investments that Chinese, enterprises make in the United States, all of the restrictions that the United States has put on this sort of trade and investment relationship, because of national security, or in some cases because of sort of supply chain diversification and resiliency interests, or because we believe that China is operating in has created an unfair playing field. I think they would like to see that change, because from the Chinese perspective, it just looks like the United States is trying to contain China, trying to constrain its economic growth and its prosperity. So I would say that's probably number one. Second, I think they would like to see the United States out of the Indo-Pacific as a major military player and power. I think they view the United States as an Atlantic power, not a Pacific power, even though we also are. I don't think China sees it that way. And Xi Jinping has been clear that when he says, Asia is for Asians to govern. So I think that would be number two. It would make China's life a lot easier if the US military were not patrolling around the South China Sea. And I think just generally speaking, the United States has become much more proactive about pushing back on China when it sees what it considers, calling out what it considers to be sort of China's bad behavior, whether that's debt-induced investment, through the Belt and Road Initiative, or some of China's actions in international institutions. I think just the sense that the United States is at every turn trying to block China from doing what it wants to do. So I can't really think of a narrow sort of policy area that I would say was a big priority, but I think there's just it all sort of feeds into a narrative that the United States is trying to contain China.